Hey guys, welcome to Real Life Cooking. Today we're doing desserts. You know the drill, I'm just setting up all my technological equipment. Is everyone excited for Thanksgiving? I am. Just in a few short days, we will all be eating and drinking merrily with our turkey or our ham. Oh, you guys on Instagram. Hey, Instagram. Look at, say hi to Instagram, Facebook. You guys got a sneak peek of my living room there. Welcome to Real Life Cooking. I just want to make sure that you guys can see here. Let's scoot that in. There we go. Hey, Amber, how are you? Hi, Ian. Hey, C Heart 8767. Hey, TT, how's the Bahamas? Not better than the snow. Hey, Sherry. Hi, Aunt Mary. How are you? Welcome to Real Life Cooking, where normally we make a meal from start to finish. A complete meal to show you how easy and fun cooking can be. You just wanted to turn off the sound. We have Stephanie here on our ones and twos because TT is unfortunately having the worst time of her life in the sun in the Bahamas. Sorry, you have to deal with that sun over there. The snow that we got this week was so amazing. But yeah, welcome to Real Life Cooking, where I normally make a complete meal from start to finish. But this month for Thanksgiving, I've been doing Thanksgiving themed episodes. So last week we made appetizers in Dallas. Thank you to the Hawkins family for inviting me to your beautiful kitchen. We made jalapeno poppers. We made a buffalo chicken dip, which was vegan. The week before we did a cider brine turkey. And you can see all of these episodes on my website, www.chefleen.com. They're also uploaded to YouTube. You just want to search Real Life Cooking and you can cook along when you're ready. You can gather the ingredients and cook along. But today we're going to be making Thanksgiving desserts. My favorite part of the meal. I particularly love Thanksgiving because sometimes it's around my birthday. Well, it's always around my birthday, but sometimes it actually is on Thanksgiving. This year it's on the Saturday after, but I love desserts. I'm very excited to make these desserts with you today. If anyone is cooking along, I hope you have your apples peeled already because we're making an apple crisp. We're making apple crisp. We're making pretty American desserts today. We're making an apple crisp, a Scotcheroo Bar, and Tiramisu, which is not American, obviously. It's from Italy. But they're all super easy desserts to throw together if you have to bring something to Thanksgiving. So watch a video. If you have any questions, comments about these recipes, comment below and Steph will relay the message to me. And yeah, it should be fun. Let's get started. We're going to go ahead and start with our apple crisp. So like I said, I hope you have your apples peeled and sliced. In general, this is the worst part about making anything with apples, but it's well worth the peeling and the slicing. Instead of using that canned stuff with the all that high fructose corn syrup, and it doesn't even actually end up tasting like a real apple. It's not really fresh at all. This is gonna be, so I'm using a paring knife and I'm just simply peeling off the skin. You can use a peeler, but I do find for apples, I'm doing like a really good job on camera. I'm very excited for myself right now. Look at this, like all one, I could be on Top Chef right now in one of those competitions. I do find for apples using a paring knife is actually a little bit better. It takes a little bit of practice, but it's a little bit easier because apple skin can be kind of slippery and those peelers are not always great against slippery skin. So once you have your apples peeled, and apple crisp is a rustic dessert, so don't worry about having like every little last piece of skin off. You're gonna wanna go ahead and just slice them. And the easiest way I found to slice apples, some recipes will tell you to take the core out, like why even bother? You just want to cut basically a square around the apple. So I took off one side, and now I'm gonna, so my pieces are the same. I'm gonna turn it and take off this opposite side. So I have two big pieces, and then I'll just square off that core in the middle, just like that. And then I'm going to slice up my apple, and just rocking my knife, slice my apple just like so. Now I'm looking for my apple to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. I like my apple desserts to have a little crisp to them. We're making apple crisp. But I don't like to overcook my apples. I like my apples to have a little bite. I find the texture is very appealing when you are eating your apple crisp. So I'm just gonna slice, I have 5 or 6 apples here, depending on the size of your pan. Now this recipe, as most recipes that I do, is very variable. So depending on the size of your pan, I'm using, this is an 8-inch cake pan today. I just want to make sure to be able to fill my cake pan as full as possible. You could use a 9x13. That's going to mean you're peeling and slicing a lot more apples. Now I have my apples that I've already soaked or already sliced in lemon water so they don't get brown. I'm just gonna drain them out using my strainer. I don't want all this water in here. But if you are doing a lot of apples in advance, you can use lemon water to help them keep from getting brown, but you can also use ginger ale. Ginger ale helps your apples from not getting brown as well. All right, so now that we have all our apples sliced and peeled, we are going to season our apples. So for those of you that need measurements, again, I'm using like an 8-inch round. I would say about a cup of sugar. Don't freak out, we're making dessert, it needs to be sweet. And I like to use like half and half. So I'll use about a half cup of white sugar and then a half cup of brown sugar. And it doesn't matter if you're using light or dark brown sugar. Oh, my brown sugar is like super hard in here. It also doesn't matter if it's clumpy because it's going to melt and become ooey gooey and delicious. So yeah, sugar definitely needed. Cinnamon or spices, any kind of spice that you want. I normally just keep it simple and use cinnamon. I find nutmeg can be a little overpowering. Just a few shakes. And what else do we need? What else do I have over here? Oh, my cranberries. Also, we're gonna be adding in some vanilla, about a teaspoon. It's kind of like a background flavor that is just gonna enhance everything. And of course, it's real life cooking with Chefleen, and I couldn't just make a basic, boring apple crisp. So to make this a little festive, I'm gonna be adding in some dried cranberries. Now the dried cranberries add like a different texture as they bake in the liquid. They're gonna get nice and like big and like juicy, and they're gonna add a festive color. So you have those little pops of red throughout your whole crisp. If you're just joining us, welcome to Real Life Cooking with Chefleen. Today we're doing Thanksgiving desserts. Right now we're making an apple cranberry crisp. We want to get this in the oven as quickly as possible, so I'm going a little quicker than I probably would. The other thing that everyone's gonna like be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're putting this in a dessert, is salt. I cannot stress how important salt is when you are making dessert. Salt essentially enhances any flavor. So you might think, oh, I'm making dessert salty. No, you're just enhancing that flavor of the apples and the sugar and the lemon that's in there and the cinnamon. So this I will not just shake in because I don't want a salty dessert. I'm probably gonna use about a teaspoon of salt. Never skip out on your salt when you are making dessert. When I was a young kid, I used to make cookies a lot and I never added the salt. And then when I went to culinary school and they explained the importance of salt, I was like, oh wow, and your cookies will be completely different. They're so good. The last thing that we want to add into this, so it can get a little, not so like loosey-goosey. I don't want the juices to be loose running all around. I'm gonna add a little bit of flour. So as the flour cooks in with the apples, it's gonna help the apples and the juices thicken up so it's more like a sauce rather than like running all around. So about a tablespoon or so of flour. And then all I'm going to do, oh, I also want to squeeze in a little bit of lemon. The lemon and that salt is really just gonna enhance the apple flavor. Lemon is amazing in desserts as well. All right, now I'm just gonna use my hands, shake this around, make sure everything is nice and coated. If you have the time, a great hint, if you're making an apple pie, apple crisp, if you let your apples sit and marinate overnight, your apple pie is gonna be out of this world. Like, I don't know what about it, but it just makes it so much more flavorful and delicious. So, now, what do I want to do before I put it in my pan? I want to taste my apples, because if they don't taste good now, they're not going to taste good when they're baked. So I might as well taste it now. It tastes pretty good. There's also, if you make this a lot, there's a certain smell that you have. It smells like appley Christmas goodness. So I'm just going to put my apples directly into my pan. Oh, I have more apples than I have pan there. We'll save these for later. These apples are going to cook down as well.
No oil in the pan?
No oil, because you'll see we're going to add a crisp on top, which is going to have a ton of butter. Speaking of my crisp, let me rinse off my hand. I want to go ahead and melt some butter for my crisp. There's a lot of different ways to make a crisp. Some recipes will call for grating your butter, keeping your butter at room temperature. Question?
Can you use a glass pan?
Yes, you can use any pan that can go in the oven. Works for this recipe. Like I said, it's flour flying everywhere. It's a very fluid recipe. It's really for your own taste. The most important thing, I'm gonna just put this butter in the microwave. The most important thing is that your apples taste good before you put them in the oven. So as much sugar as that means to you, add more sugar if you want them to be more sweet. Just make sure to balance it with the lemon and the salt. So yeah, and good baking apples. Basically, I like to use any kind of apple that I have available. I feel like that's the whole point of a crisp, is to use whatever apples you have lying around your house. Hey Rita, we have my ship friend here. Welcome. Yeah, any kind of apples that you have lying around will work in a crisp, but if you really want to like be specific and have the best thing ever, these are a few of the recommended baking apples because they stay more crisp, they keep their texture, and they don't get mushy. Those would be your Jonagolds, Honeycrisp, Braeburn, Mitsu, which is also known as Crispin, and Pink Lady apples. Honeycrisp apples are like $1 million in the store, so unless you really want to impress some people, I would stay away from Honeycrisp apples when you're baking. Because honestly, once they bake all up, it kind of tastes the same anyway. So don't even stress yourself about buying the perfect apple. But if you want to stress yourself, I just told you the ones you could buy. All right, so we have a whole stick of butter for our crisp here. And here we go with the measuring again. I'm gonna add to this a cup of sugar, white sugar, and brown sugar again, probably the rest of this. This is dessert, remember we want it to be sweet. A tip, if your brown sugar is hard as a rock like this, you can throw it in the microwave. You can take a knife and bang it down, don't do that. You can also put a piece of bread in a Ziploc bag with your brown sugar, and it actually will make the brown sugar soft after about a day. But again, I'm baking this, so I don't really need it to be super soft and amazing. This is, again, a rustic dessert, so just throw it all in there and see what happens. I'm going to throw this into my melted butter. I probably need a bigger bowl. If anyone wants to get me a Christmas gift, I need some mixing bowls. Also to this, we are going to add half a cup of oats, Quaker oats. I like to use the old-fashioned ones. I find that when you use the quick oats, they get really mushy, and I like the texture on top. This dessert is really about flavors and textures. We have all the perfect flavors in here already with our apples. They're very well seasoned, but we want them to be crisp, and we want this to be nice and crispy too on top with our oatmeal. So we have our sugar, we have our brown sugar, we have our oatmeal. The last thing I need to add is flour. So if you need measurements, we are using a stick of butter, 1 cup of sugar, a half a cup of oats, and about a cup of flour. And you guys are all gonna watch me struggle as I mix this in this tiny, tiny bowl. All right, so we're gonna mix this together. My brown sugar is not cooperating. And we kind of want it to be a paste. Real life cooking. I'm about to bring out my bowl pan. My bowl pan once again. There we go. Because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So I just want to mix this together until it's kind of pasty. My brown sugar is like way too hard here. This is why you should, oh there it goes. It's starting to soften up because of that warm butter. But again, don't throw away your brown sugar. Like, it's totally edible. It's totally possible to use. Just you might have to finagle it a little bit more. Now, what did we forget to add in here? What did I say is so important in desserts?
Salt.
Salts, yes, because look at all this sugar we have in here. And we want to balance that out with some saltiness. All right, so we have our flour, our sugars, 2 sugars, and you can see it's pretty crumbly. It's almost like a paste. If you have the time, it's cool to pop this in the fridge really quick. So when it starts to bake, it won't melt completely. I'm gonna use my sugary hands here. Just a little bit of salt on top of there. And now we will crumble this on top. as you can see, this comes together fairly quickly. If you wanted to, you can make extra crumble and put it in your freezer so you're always ready to make emergency crumble. You can also vary up the fruits in this. You can use peaches, you can use plums. This is a great easy summer dessert if your mom allows you to turn on the oven. My mom never allowed me to turn on the oven in the summer. It was too hot in her house. So yeah, it's completely up to you, whatever you like. If you don't like apples, you're weird, just kidding. But you can use anything you want. Peaches works really well. Just give my hands a rinse. Take my bowl pot over here. And I'm not going to throw this directly in the oven like this, because if I do, it's gonna melt and bubble over, and there's gonna be a gigantic mess in my oven floor. So I always want to, anytime I make a pie, a crumble, anything like that, even when I make a cake sometimes, just on top of a baking tray, because this is a lot easier to clean than the bottom of your oven. Now I will throw it in my janky oven that I found out yesterday, where I never know the temperature of it, and we will cook it for about 30 to 45 minutes. What we're looking for here is the top to be brown. You're like, Kathleen, the brown sugar is brown. How am I supposed to know? It will change a different color brown. It'll be a little like toastier brown. And the apples will be soft. So if you want to like sneak a little knife inside your apples, then you'll know that it's done. But it's really, again, up to preferences. If you like your apples mushy, then cook it for longer. It's at 350, 30 to 45 minutes. All right. Now we will be moving on to our Scotcheroo Bars. Remember, if you have any questions, comments, please comment below. Stephanie and Rita will be reading them out loud. This is real life cooking with, yes? What?
How long does this need to stay in the oven?
The apple crisp, the apple crisp needs to stay in about 30 to 45 minutes. If you are using a bigger pan, of course, it might need to cook longer. Cooking is active, check on it. 30 minutes is like the minimum amount of time that I will put an apple crisp in, because the apples are not going to be soft at all if they're in there for less than 30 minutes. All right, so let's get started on our Scotcheroo Bars. What we're going to do, actually, is measure out a cup of sugar. Let's talk about the ingredients that we need. We need sugar. We need, what else do we need? Sugar, corn syrup, peanut butter, Rice Krispie treats, which I'm not going to bring over yet, and we have our chocolate chips and our butterscotch chips. So a Scotcheroo bar, which I had never heard of until I was looking for ideas for this episode, is essentially a Rice Krispie treat with no marshmallows, and instead we kind of make like a sugar syrup. Yes, question?
Will stevia work?
Stevia for what? For this?
Let me clarify the question.
So we're making a sugar syrup out of sugar and corn syrup, which we're going to heat up on the stove. We're going to use a cup of sugar. I don't know why I oiled that yet. That was not smart of me. That was for the next step. I was a step ahead of myself. So a cup of sugar here in my lovely measuring cups. Thanks, Yaz. Thanks for upgrading my life in my own house. A cup of sugar into a large pot, and a cup of corn syrup, light corn syrup. Now, you saw me oil my measuring cup before I use the sugar. I oiled the measuring cup because corn syrup is very sticky, and it'll help the corn syrup come out easier, hopefully. Let's not make a lot. Oh, see? So much easier, and it'll all come out. It won't be stuck in there. This is a great trick, like if you need to measure honey, syrup, or anything sticky. Corn syrup, molasses, anything like that. And then I'm going to keep this measuring cup here and heat up this mixture. Now, I don't want to walk away from my stove. Question?
I think the question about the stevia is in case they need a substitute in case there's a diabetic.
Oh, so if you're you can use stevia pretty much as a sugar substitute, like cup for cup. So yeah, I would use it in the apple crisp. I'm not quite sure if in the Scotcheroo bar it would work, because essentially the sugar syrup, I've never used stevia when I've like tried to boil sugar or melt sugar, so I'm not quite sure. But try it out. Let me know. See how it goes. So as I was saying, we are going to melt our sugar and our corn syrup, and we don't want to walk away from this, because if we walk away from it and it overboils, our Rice Krispie or our Scotcheroo Bars are going to be tough, and that's not really a good eat. We don't want to eat tough Scotcheroo Bars. So we're just gonna sit here on like a medium-low heat and kind of stir it until the sugar dissolves. Now I want to talk a little bit about corn syrup. It's not to be confused with like high fructose corn syrup, which has been like a huge buzzword in the past, I don't know, 10 years or so. Like, we should stay away from it. Corn syrup in this form is essentially just high fructose syrup or sugar that has been extracted from corn, or sugar that has been extracted from corn and turned into liquid form. So it's not the same as high fructose. It doesn't have all those bad things. I'm not a nutritionist, but I know high fructose syrup is bad for you. And what it essentially does in recipes is it softens textures. It adds volume sometimes. It helps with the crystallization of sugar. Sometimes if you're making like a caramel or something like that, your sugar will seize if you're heating it up. So it kind of helps prevent that. It's like a barrier between those things. And it also could be added to enhance flavor. Corn syrup is actually sweeter than real sugar. And it's not to be confused with syrup. When I was growing up, my grandma used to try to give me corn syrup on my pancakes. I was like, this is not syrup, lady, I'm sorry. But it is actually sweeter than real sugar. So I'm gonna just keep stirring this. Again, I don't wanna walk away from it. There we are. And it's almost done, but as it sits there, I'm going to measure out a cup of peanut butter. So these are not a bar to probably bring to your school or your child's school, because so many schools are like so aware of nut allergies. You know, it'd be nice if you use like almond butter. You can make almond butter or Nutella Scotcheroos. Those would be some expensive Scotcheroos, and fattening. You know, a tablespoon of Nutella is like 225 calories. I learned that.
I point out that you're measuring something right now.
Yes, no, I'm measuring this recipe because this recipe you need to measure, because if you don't, you're gonna mess it up. This recipe was originated by Rice Krispies in the 1960s, and the proportions are very important. In general, proportions are important for desserts, but an apple crisp is like you just want it to taste good for yourself, and it's tons of sugar and apples or fruit. It's a little easier to eyeball. The only thing is the crumble on top. You need the proportions a little bit. All right, so this is melting and looking lovely. There's still some grains of sugar. I'm gonna turn up my heat a little bit since I'm standing here. And as that's melting, I'm gonna keep this over here. I'm going to measure out where am I gonna measure them out to? Let's watch me fly Rice Krispie treats all over the floor. I'm gonna measure out 6 cups of Rice Krispies. Rice Krispies used to be one of my favorite cereals. The Snap, Crackle, and Pop. I'm just gonna measure them on this plate and hope that things happen and they don't fly everywhere when I try to put them in the stove. That'll be entertaining television, right? Entertaining live streaming. All right. 6 cups. Remember that proportions are important here, because if you don't have enough syrup to cereal ratio, then your Rice Krispies or your Scotcheroo Bars are going to be dry and crumbly and not good. All right, our syrup, I cannot see any more granules of sugar in here. So I'm gonna add in my peanut butter now to melt this into our sugar syrup. And, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Look at that. Because I greased my measuring cup, almost all the peanut butter came out. Magic trick, right? Exciting stuff. Exciting stuff here in Harlem happening.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, you just have to remember, which sometimes remembering is the hardest part.
Right.
All right, so now I'm gonna melt down my peanut butter in here. And again, it's important that we melt it, but we don't overboil it, because if you overboil sugar, it's gonna become caramel. That's essentially what caramel is. And then it'll be hard and not very easy to eat. As it melts down, I'm gonna grab my 9x13 pan. And I'm going to, so you can grease this pan if you want to, or you can avoid all work completely, and use parchment paper. Parchment paper is one of those things that's really great when you're baking things because it avoids sticky messes. Woo! Sticky messes. So I'll just lay this in to my 9x13 pan. And then when I take out my Scotcheroo Bars, it'll be perfect. I'm just gonna lay this knife here for now. All right, our peanut butter sugar syrup is doing great back here. It's not all combined yet. I wanna make sure it's mixed very, very well, but not overdone. Ooh, look, it's a little river of peanut butter back here.
Can you make Reese's peanut butter cups?
Can you make Reese's peanut butter cups? Like from home scratch Reese's peanut butter cups? Yeah, this probably is like the middle of a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Sweeter.
Sweeter peanut butter. These are great because it's all done on the stovetop. A lot of times when you're cooking a big holiday meal like Thanksgiving, everything's in the oven. So like you don't have to use any oven space, you don't have to plan around it, you can just do it on the stove, which is nice. You can make them a couple days beforehand. I would make them maybe no more than 2 days in advance. And hopefully if you made them right, they'll just disappear, you won't have any leftovers. Alright, so this is perfect now. It's all one color. It's shimmery, it looks like Willy Wonka's like river of goodness here. Now I'm going to add in, you know what I forgot to finish? Measuring out my Rice Krispies. I have 6 cups of Rice Krispie treats. I don't know why I make my life so much harder on here by leaving everything open and having you guys watch me struggle opening all these boxes. I'm showing you it's easy. You can do it for yourself. Easy, easy. And who doesn't like desserts? There we go. So we have 6 cups of our Rice Krispie treats. Now, I made these yesterday and I made the mistake of trying to take this nice sauce and transfer it to another bowl and then mix in my Rice Krispie treats. The best thing that you can do is mix your Rice Krispie treats into the exact same pan, or Rice Krispies, into the exact same pan that you are already making your sauce in. Because if you put your hot sauce into a cold bowl, it's going to start to harden and seize, and that's no fun to try to mix around. And then if you try to put your glass bowl in the microwave, it breaks like it did for me yesterday. So, make your life easier. Mix it directly into the pot that you're using. That's why I told you to use a big bowl or a big pot. I'm going to just start mixing it together. Rice Krispie treats are like, or Scotcheroo Bars are one of those things. It's like, oh, it's so easy to make with kids, but it's actually quite dangerous. The syrup is like super hot. These Rice Krispie treats get everywhere, so kudos to any parents that make Rice Krispie treats with their kids. All right, I feel like, oh, here, there's a lot of sauce at the bottom. So now I'm gonna add in my last 2 cups of my Rice Krispies. If you are just joining us, welcome to Real Life Cooking with Chefleen. Every week I make a meal from start to finish that makes sense for your life. This week, however, we're diving into the sweet treats of Thanksgiving. We have an apple cranberry crisp in the oven right now. Hopefully it starts to smell really good soon. And right now I'm currently mixing up Scotcheroo Bars, which are a take on Rice Krispie treats, just using peanut butter and sugar and what?
I can smell it.
You can smell, you can smell the peanut butter. So I just want to make sure that all my Rice Krispies are coated, because the last thing that you want is a dry Scotcheroo bar where your Rice Krispies are not coated. By the way, I'm leaving to California tomorrow, so if anyone wants some dessert, come and stop by, because I don't need all this dessert to eat. There we go. All right, so this is nice and incorporated. I have a 9x13 pan here, lined with parchment paper because I want to make my life easy. I also don't want to burn myself, so I'm going to take this hot pan and I'm just going to pour this into my parchment paper. Here we go. Oh, you know what else is great about this is almost, it would be almost a vegan dessert.
Can't you almost eat that raw?
You could eat this now. Yeah. You could eat this now. Because, you know, Rice Krispie treats aren't vegan because the marshmallows, they have gelatin in them. So look at me looking out for the vegans, making a vegan dessert here. The only thing not vegan about this is because once we press it down into the pan, I'm going to cover it. Okay, I would not suggest using your hands, but I have hands made of steel. I just want to press it down so it's even, so I have nice even bars when it comes down. It actually has, it's not sticking to my hand, so that means I made this right today. I'm very excited. All right, so now we want to let this cool for a second. Well, we don't need to let it super cool, but we're gonna let this sit here for a second. And we're gonna move on to the non-vegan part of this Scotcheroo bar, which will be the chocolate and butterscotch that we're gonna pour on top. Now there's a few ways, where did I put that stuff? Oh, here we go. Butterscotch.
TT said save me some.
Oh, I put them right here. Oh, when are you coming back, TT? Tuesday? I don't know if I have any more. All right, so I'm gonna melt some butterscotch and chocolate chips together.
Mary O'Brien says, please bring all the leftovers to California with you tomorrow.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'm visiting my grandma. Well, it's Thanksgiving, so I'm going home for the holiday. I'm gonna visit my grandma in San Diego, and my aunt. I guess my Aunt Mary is there as well. All right. So I like to use more butterscotch than chocolate chips, but it's up to your preference. If you want more chocolate than butterscotch, cool. Now, what I'm going to do is melt these. And there's a few ways to melt chocolate. The easiest way is right in your microwave. But the thing is you want to do it in intervals. You don't want to just put your chocolate in there and for 5 minutes because then it's going to burn and scorch. You want to do it, I always do like a minute first. And then after that, I'll take it out and stir it. And then after that, I will do it in 30-second intervals and stir it every single time. Otherwise, your chocolate's going to burn on the edges and not be very palatable. So like I said, these would almost be vegan. You could eat them right here. But if you add this chocolate, obviously it's not vegan. Some chocolate has like butter and stuff in it. So be careful if you want them to be vegan. Waiting for our chocolate to melt. The other way you can melt chocolate, which is a little bit more difficult, is you basically make a double boiler on your stove, which is a pot of boiling water, then you put a glass bowl on top, put it over, and you just like let it stir. That is not really my preferred method now that we, live in the 21st century with microwaves. Because also if you get water inside your melted chocolate, then it's going to seize and not really work for you. So we have our butterscotch and chocolate chips that have been in the microwave for 1 minute. And as you can see, they're already pretty melted. They actually might be. But you want to make sure you do this step. If you just put this in there for 2 minutes, you're going to burn it and it's not going to be great. See, actually, hot. Actually, I'm going to just stir it together, and the heat that just burned my hand, the heat that is in the bowl is still melting the chocolate. So I might not even have to put it back in. Yeah, I don't think I do. Wow, look at that. Also, some recipes say when you're looking up these Scotcheroo bars to leave like the little bits of pieces if you have little lumps of chocolate because it looks pretty. It looks like a swirl. Stir, 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 stir. All right, perfect. Let me not burn my hand again. Don't tell anyone I licked my fingers, as you guys all saw that. All right, now I'm just gonna pour this chocolate on top. I'm actually gonna grab another essential tool for baking desserts, which is a spatula. If you don't have one, you can get in all those little crevices and really not waste anything. I learned this skill from my grandma. I used to be very upset because she was so good at scraping the bowl, there was nothing left to like lick on at the end. It's very sad. Very sad. And so now, let me move this so you can see. All I'm gonna do is just spread this chocolate evenly on top, just like this, and we're just gonna let it set. If you wanna speed up this process, you could put it in the fridge, but you don't wanna leave them in the fridge for too long because then it's gonna make your cereal stale. I'm gonna pop this in the fridge until the end of the episode just so we can hopefully have a finished bar at the end. If you leave it out, it will set, but it is gonna take a lot longer. Also, if you're cooking a lot of things and there's a lot of heat in your house, then it's not gonna set either. So just like 30 minutes or so. I wouldn't put it in any longer than that. All right, let me clean up my mess while we get to our last dessert of the evening, which is our pumpkin tiramisu. Tiramisu is a Italian dessert, typically made with mascarpone cheese and coffee flavored. So we are gonna do a spin because pumpkin is like the official like dessert of the holiday, but I'm not really a fan of pumpkin pie, so I wanted to mix it up. So we're gonna make a pumpkin tiramisu. So we're gonna flavor it with coffee, we're gonna flavor it with pumpkin and mascarpone cheese, and hopefully it should be delicious. Hopefully it tastes better than a pumpkin spice latte. I had one from Starbucks, not good at all. But if you like pumpkin and you like coffee, then we'll see. All right, so let's bring out, before we do that, let's check on our crisp. See, my janky oven turned off.
It hasn't been 30 minutes.
I know, but I gotta check on this janky oven. There we go. Okay, it's back on. Let's see what's happening with it, since it was sitting in this warm little bath.
So it just turns off?
Yeah, it turns off if it's at a low temperature, because it's like the pilot. So it hasn't, actually, it has changed a little bit. If I touch it now, before it was like more moist, but that flour with the butter and the sugar is starting to get hard and crisp. That's the name. So yeah, it's getting crispy. Let's steal an apple from here and see how it's still like a regular apple. So yes, it has some time to go. Go ahead and put this back in. A note, if you are trying to rush something cooking, you don't want to keep opening and closing the oven door because you're just letting all that heat out, reducing your oven temperature. All right, let's grab all of our ingredients for our pumpkin tiramisu. We have, so essentially we're gonna make 3 different layers. We'll talk about this layer after. We're gonna make a pumpkin and mascarpone layer. So essentially I'm gonna mix pumpkin pie mix with mascarpone cheese. Mascarpone cheese is an Italian cream cheese. It's made with whole cream and tartic acid. And there's a few substitutes, but they're not really as good as mascarpone cheese. If you really can't find it, you can substitute like a clotted cream, which if you can't find mascarpone cheese, it's gonna be hard to find clotted cream. So cream cheese will work in a pinch. Or a creamy ricotta, not one with like lumps in it. But it just has like a buttery, smooth flavor. Have you guys had mascarpone cheese? It's so delicious. It's also really good. It works really good in desserts. It's used in a lot of desserts. But if you're making like a tomato sauce and you add in a little mascarpone cheese, it makes it super creamy. So we're gonna basically, I think in the recipe I told you to have a hand mixer, but you know we're gonna do everything by hand here because we're really cool people. And I definitely don't need all of this pumpkin pie filling at all. So there's a few ways that we can build it after we make our layers. We can make one big one in like a whole pan. What I'm gonna do is make layered small dishes of it. So I don't need to use so much of it. What am I looking for? A bowl, yes. So we are going to take out all of our mascarpone cheese. Oh, I have this little hand mixer here.
What is that?
It's a hand mixer from the olden days.
Oh.
Thanks, Aunt Maureen. This is one of my Aunt Maureen's gifts that she gave me. She gives me the coolest, weirdest gifts, but it's hanging on my wall. It's well used.
Are you going to use it today?
I don't think I'm going to use it because I feel like it's rusty because it's probably from like 1800s or the early 1900s. My aunt inherited this house in Seattle that's like an old Victorian house, and this lady was like a porter. She could have been on that show. But she has so many cool things, and I always get random gifts from the house. That was one of them. So it's super old. So before I do anything, I just want to whip my mascarpone cheese just to make sure there's no lumps in it. There shouldn't be, but I just want to incorporate a little bit of air. This is where you could use your hand mixer, but as you can see, my mascarpone cheese is so nice and soft that I don't even really need it. Now, sorry for those of you who want measurements, we're gonna add in enough pumpkin to make it taste good to us. So if you like super pumpkin flavor, add more. I'm adding 4 scoops to my 8 ounces of mascarpone cheese, and I'm just gonna move this around, as you can see. And I want to make it one equal color so it'll look pretty in my dish when I layer it. Ah! Flying pumpkin. Pumpkin and mascarpone. Now, I'm using pumpkin pie filling, so there's already sugar in here, but I'm going to taste it and see if I like it, and if I want to add sugar, I'm going to add sugar. Pretty good. I'll add sugar. I'm only going to add a little bit of sugar. Actually, I normally add sugar to the pumpkin pie if I'm even making just pumpkin pie out of this can. They say just you don't even need sugar, but I always add it. It's dessert. It's supposed to be sweet. So I add about a tablespoon of sugar, and I also want to add in some vanilla, just like a teaspoon or so. And I want to add in some cinnamon or pumpkin pie spice, whatever you have. Recipes that say specifically like pumpkin pie spice, it's generally cinnamon, nutmeg. If it's easier for you to just have pumpkin pie spice and add it to everything, that's cool. If you just have cinnamon, just add cinnamon. If you just have nutmeg, it's up to you. Recipes are fluid. All right, and what is the last thing we want to add to this? The unusual ingredient that we don't think about.
Salt.
Salt, yes, from the Peanut Gallery. You're learning so much here. Just a little. It'll just help bring out those flavors. All right, so we'll mix that together. And this is going to be one layer of our tiramisu. Last thing I need to do is taste it. Perfectness now. Tastes delicious. I'm not even like a huge fan of pumpkin, but that's pretty good. All right, the next layer that we need to do, and you guys are all gonna watch me struggle, is a layer of whipped cream. So I'm going to take out all of my materials. Again, if you love me and you want to get me a gift, mixing bowls for Christmas, thank you. I'm going to whip my cream by hand. Again, you can use your hand mixer. If you were using your hand, question?
How much did you use?
Oh, this is about 1/4 of a cup. I'm going to just whip my cream side to side using a whisk. A whisk is the only thing that'll do this besides like a hand mixer. Rita is probably well familiar because I used to whip cream on stage at Hall in America in front of all these hat lights. So the best, easiest way to whip cream for yourself at home is to make sure everything is cold. If you notice, I took my whisk out of the freezer, I took my bowl out of the freezer, I took the whipped cream out of the freezer. So everything is nice and cold, which is going to help the fat incorporate, or the air, because heavy cream has a lot of fat in it. It's going to help the air incorporate a little bit more. If the fat is hot, it's going to be like slow and lazy and not whip up. I'm also whipping it from side to side. Normally you would think you want to whip round and around, but it actually incorporates the air a little bit better if you just go side to side. Again, if you have a hand mixer, totally feel free to use it. What I would do is whip my cream first, remove that into another bowl, and then I would mix my pumpkin mixture second, so then you're not dirtying as many bowls. So, I want to just keep, something's wrong with my whisk. Maybe I should have used that little old school hand mixer. Also, I've been taught, like, if you don't look at it, it looks faster, so everyone close their eyes. Stop watching me. If you're just joining me, welcome to Real Life Cooking with Chefleen. Today we are making Thanksgiving desserts. We've made our Scotcheroo Bars. They're in the freezer. Ooh, I'm getting a workout. My arm hurts. We made Scotcheroo Bars. They're in the fridge right now, setting up that chocolate layer on top. And we have an apple cranberry crisp in our oven. Right now you're watching me struggle hand whipping cream. As you notice, I'm going side to side, not up and down, or around and around. And I'm making a gigantic mess because I don't have real mixing bowls. You want real slotted. So, but I am making progress. As you can see, it's getting thicker. We're almost there. We don't want stiff peaks. We want our whipped cream nice and pillowy and soft. Like clouds. Woo! Flying everywhere. Everything is nice and cold, except for this house, which is making it more difficult to whip up. House is super hot. But, oh, it's starting to look like something. Almost there. All right. Ooh, a little bit more. If you can see, you probably can't, It's getting, these are like no peaks right there. See? We're gonna go ahead and keep going just a little bit more. Again, you can use a hand mixer at home. Makes your life a lot easier. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. A nice little juice. You can season your cream with sugar, but everything else in this is so sweet that I like to kind of leave it plain. And I'm gonna put this in the fridge until I finish my last layer. If you leave your whipped cream out, it's gonna get hot and your air you just created is gonna deflate and it's gonna be nice and soupy. Not really what you want. Final layer of our tiramisu. Oh, I have whipped cream everywhere. Final layer of our tiramisu is gonna be our lady finger layer. There's like, oh, here's our towel. I like opening things with knives. There we go. Lady fingers are these pretty horrible cookies, like by themselves. They're super dry. They're super dry and not very flavorful, but they work really well in this recipe because we're gonna dip them in our liqueur and coffee, and they're gonna be nice and fluffy and flavorful inside. They actually give them to babies a lot because they're like good to chew on. All right. Oh, now I just need a bowl. Or actually, I'll layer it. I'll layer it in these pretty glasses. Here we go. And I need one more bowl for my liqueur and coffee mixture. Actually, I'll use this shallow bowl here. So, we have just some coffee that I made. And some liqueur. You can leave this out, it just adds a flavor. I'm using whiskey. There is such a thing as pumpkin liqueur. You could use Kahlua in here, really whatever you want. It just adds like a little spike. You don't want to make it like so boozy because then like eating booze is not good. You just want it to be a nice subtle hint in the background. All right, let's see how this is gonna work. So we have our glasses. Obviously, I could do it a few different ways. You want to think about what you're doing. I'm going to layer it this way, but clearly my cookie doesn't fit inside. So I want to cut my cookies so that they will fit inside of my glass. This is a great dessert to make ahead of time because you actually want to let it sit for up to 24 hours so all the flavors can combine together. It's something that's going to get better with time. All right. So now that I'm ready with all my ingredients here, let's get everything out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. I have my pumpkin and mascarpone mixture here. I have my coffee and liqueur, and I have my whipped cream in the fridge. I'll just take that out. And now it's really up to your own creative being. Questions?
It's been 30 minutes.
Oh, well actually I'm gonna leave it in there till I finish this because we just checked on it and my oven wasn't working, so we're gonna leave it in there. So essentially what we're gonna do is assemble this now. So what we're gonna do is dip our cookie in and then place it in however you want. As I mentioned earlier, you can do this in any size container that you want to do it in. You could do it in 9x13 pan. You can really get creative and make it look pretty. I'm going to do a layer of the pumpkin. It's kind of like a pumpkin mousse almost. And then just a little bit of cream on top of that. Push it out to the edges so you can see all those beautiful layers. It's actually easier to do it in like a bigger container because obviously if you have a party of like 12 people, you're making 12 individual things as opposed to people being able to help themselves from one bigger container. Now, when I'm dipping my ladyfingers in, I'm not soaking them entirely because I think I've mentioned this before, I'm a texture person and I like that little bit of crunch. I'm not so into soggy desserts, but if you are into those, go ahead and dip them to your heart's content. Cooking, it only has to taste good to you and the people eating it. All right, so I'll put another layer of pumpkin and then, you guessed it, a layer of cream. Easy. And now this is a very rich dessert, so no one is going to be able to eat a full glass of this except for maybe TT Lyle. So I wouldn't fill this glass all the way up. I'll probably do one more layer here. So I'm going to do one more layer of cookies dipped in our coffee liqueur and coffee mixed with liquor. Here we go. And you want to do this as neat as possible because obviously you eat with your eyes. Actually, I don't need to fit that little cookie in. There we go. One more layer of pumpkin here. So obviously you would adjust the measurements for whatever size container that you are making it in. And one more last layer of whipped cream on top. This is probably enough for like 3 people, honestly. It's a very, very rich dessert. All right. Finally, isn't it so pretty? It's like a little layered glass, like when people get married and they do the sands together. That's what it looks like. Last but not least, I asked you guys to buy ginger snaps. Ginger snaps are just a nice touch and a nice flavor combination. The ginger goes really well with pumpkin. You could actually even mix in a little bit of dry ginger inside of your pumpkin mixture to like enhance the flavor. I'm going to smash up some of these ginger snaps. This is a really good task for your food processor, but if you don't have a food processor, I find the easiest way to smash something up is in a Ziploc bag with something heavy. I use my little lemon juicer, but if you have like a meat mallet, that works really well. Smash up my ginger snap cookies, and before I put those on, I'm going to clean up the edges of this because I want it to look pretty. And then I will finally just crumble some ginger snap cookies on top. So this is obviously like very, very easy. Again, you can make it ahead of time. It tastes even better the next day. Let's move all of this out of the way so we can do our grand reveal of all of our desserts. Move these lady fingers out of the way. It's very hard not to eat while I'm doing this because normally when I'm cooking, I'm always like snacking and eating. All right. Final reveal of all our desserts. Let's put our little pumpkin tiramisu there. Let's check on our Scotcheroo Bars. The chocolate, hopefully, oh no, it's still hot. At home, once you leave it in the, see it's still soft. But when you go to cut these out, if you put the parchment paper in, you should be able to just lift this out and it will peel off. I can't unfortunately do that because it's still warm on the bottom, so I'm gonna leave them in the fridge. But don't worry, I'll show you in a picture later. And finally, let's check on our apple crisp. Looking good. It has changed color a bit, and it's nice and crispy on top. I'm excited about this. Apple crisp is like my favorite dessert. Anything with apples. I love apples particularly because that's how I won Chopped. I had an apple dessert for my final thing. And this is, like I said, a very rustic dessert, so it doesn't really matter how it comes out. Just take out all that goodness. You could also make individual apple crisp in something like I'm holding here. If you want it to be fancy, actually, I don't even want it to be fancy. I just want to eat this. I'm going to say bye to you guys now. No. So, here's our nice warm apple crisp out of the oven with our cranberries in it, our crumbly topping. We have our pumpkin tiramisu. We're going to have a sweet dessert party with some wine after, and our Scotcheroo Bars. Thank you so much for joining me on Real Life Cooking. Thank you to Stephanie for helping me today and Rita for joining us. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Comment questions below. You can check out all my old episodes on www.com or www.chefleen.com. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful holiday. And try one of these and tag me. Let me know how it goes.
Oh wait, there's a